Marcus Chun had been salvaging space debris for 3 years, but he'd never seen anything like the massive derelict floating in the asteroid field. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of his little salvage vessel, the Rusty Nail. Its hull was a dark metal he didn't recognize, covered in strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. "Computer, scan that vessel," Marcus said, settling into his pilot's seat. The coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago, but he sipped it anyway. Space salvage was lonely work, and bad coffee was better than no coffee. Scanning complete. His ship's basic AI replied in its monotone voice. Unknown alloy composition. No energy signatures detected. Estimated age. Over 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Marcus whistled low. That was old, even by galactic standards. The oldest human ships were barely 300 years old, and they were considered ancient. This thing had been floating out here since before humans even knew other species existed. Any signs of life? Negative. Vessel appears completely dead. Marcus rubbed his stubbled chin. Dead ships this old were usually picked clean by other salvagers, but this one looked untouched. The hull showed wear from cosmic radiation and micrometeorites, but no obvious damage from weapons or cutting tools. It was like it had just been abandoned. "Well, let's see what's inside," he muttered, firing up the Rusty Nail's engines. The little ship moved with the grace of a brick, but it got the job done. Marcus had built her himself from salvage parts, and she'd never let him down. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool, recycled air of his ship. One wrong move, and both vessels could be torn apart. But Marcus had been doing this for years. He'd started as a kid on Earth's orbital shipyards, learning to pilot maintenance pods between the massive construction rigs. When the colonies opened up and salvage became profitable, he'd struck out on his own. He knew ships, and more importantly, he knew how to make two incompatible pieces of technology work together. The Rusty Nail's docking clamps engaged with a satisfying clunk. Marcus ran through his pre-boarding checklist. Pressure suit sealed, oxygen tanks full, emergency beacon activated. He learned the hard way never to board a derelict without proper safety gear. The airlock cycled, and Marcus stepped into the unknown ship. The first thing that hit him was the smell, or rather the lack of it. The air was completely sterile, not even the metallic tang he'd expect from a long-dead ship. His suit's sensors showed breathable atmosphere, but he kept his helmet sealed. Paranoia had kept him alive this long. The interior was as strange as the exterior. The corridors were wider than human ships required, with a slight curve that made Marcus feel like he was walking through the inside of an enormous rib cage. Soft bioluminescent panels provided dim lighting, responding to his presence by brightening as he passed. "Computer, are you reading this?" he said into his comm unit. "Affirmative. Atmosphere is breathable for humans. Temperature, 21 degrees Celsius. No immediate threats detected." Marcus made his way toward what looked like the ship's central hub. The corridor branched several times, but he marked his path with magnetic tags. Getting lost on a derelict was a good way to become part of the salvage. The central chamber was massive, with a domed ceiling that rose at least 50 meters above his head. In the center was a pillar of what looked like living crystal, pulsing with faint inner light. As Marcus approached, the light grew brighter, and suddenly, the air around him hummed with energy. "Warning!" came a voice from everywhere and nowhere. The words were in perfect English, but there was something alien about the tone. "Unauthorized presence detected. Please state your intentions." Marcus nearly jumped out of his skin. Dead ships didn't talk. Hello? Is someone there? I am the autonomous intelligence of the vessel Eternal Wanderer. You are human, are you not? Your species is unknown to my databases, yet your physiology matches theoretical predictions from our xenobiologists. OIE. Marcus relaxed slightly. Dealing with artificial intelligences was tricky, but at least they were usually logical. "Yeah, I'm human. Name's Marcus Chun. I'm a salvager. I found your ship drifting in the asteroid field." "Salvager." The AI's voice carried what might have been amusement. How delightfully appropriate. Yes, I suppose Eternal Wanderer must appear quite salvageable to your kind. Tell me, human Marcus Chun, what year is it by your reckoning? 2387. What? There was a long pause. The crystal pillar pulsed brighter, then dimmer, as if the AI was thinking. 2387. By my calculations, that means I have been waiting for approximately 2,412 years. Waiting for what? Another pause. For someone who might be able to help me. Tell me, Marcus Chun, what do you know of quantum fuel matrices? Marcus frowned. Nothing. Never heard of them. I work with standard fusion cores and antimatter pods. Sometimes gravitic drives if I'm lucky. I see. The AI's voice carried a weight of disappointment that seemed almost human. Then, I fear you cannot help me after all. My quantum fuel matrix failed over 2 millennia ago. Without it, I cannot move, cannot think properly, cannot even maintain basic life support much longer. The crystal pillar pulsed weakly, and some of the bioluminescent panels began to flicker. The Eternal Wanderer was designed to run for 10,000 years without refueling. We thought ourselves prepared for any contingency, but we did not account for cascade failure in the quantum substrate. When the matrix collapsed, it took our entire fuel generation system with it. Marcus walked closer to the crystal pillar, studying it with a salvager's eye. What exactly does this quantum fuel do? It exists in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously matter and energy until observed and collapsed into the needed state. With it, a ship like mine could travel between galaxies, survive in the void between stars, even manipulate local space-time for faster-than-light travel. Sounds pretty advanced. My creators, the Valeth, were the most scientifically advanced species in this galaxy. I suspect they are long extinct now, given the time that has passed. Marcus nodded sympathetically. He'd found plenty of dead civilizations in his salvaging career. Space was littered with the remains of species that had reached for the stars, and found only emptiness. So this quantum fuel, you can't make more? The process requires materials and equipment I do not possess. Even if I had them, the energy requirements would exceed my current capabilities by several orders of magnitude. I have been slowly dying for over 2,000 years, Marcus Chun. Each day my power reserves dwindle a little more. The lights flickered again, as if to emphasize the point. Marcus studied the crystal pillar, his mind racing. He made a career out of making impossible things work, of jury-rigging solutions from scrap and determination. The quantum fuel was beyond him. That much was obvious. But maybe, what if we didn't try to fix the quantum fuel system? He said slowly. What if we replaced it entirely? Replaced it? The AI's voice sharpened with interest. With what? I don't know yet. But you said your ship was designed to run for 10,000 years. That means it's incredibly efficient. Maybe we don't need quantum fuel. Maybe we just need enough regular fuel to get you somewhere that can help. Impossible. The Eternal Wanderer was built around quantum technology. Our systems are not compatible with primitive fusion or antimatter. Everything's compatible if you're creative enough, Marcus said with a grin. That's the first rule of salvaging. Give me a little time to look around, see what we're working with. Maybe I can't fix your quantum fuel matrix, but I bet I can rig something that'll get you moving again. The AI was quiet for a long moment. You would do this? For a stranger? For an alien intelligence you met moments ago? Marcus shrugged. It's what humans do. We see something broken, we try to fix it. Doesn't matter if it's a toaster or a starship or an artificial intelligence. If it can be fixed, we'll find a way. The crystal pillar pulsed brighter, and Marcus could swear he heard something like hope in the AI's voice. Very well, Marcus Chun. I will show you my ship. But I warn you, I have tried everything I can think of for over 2,000 years. What makes you believe you can succeed where I have failed? Marcus smiled and patted his tool belt. Because I'm human. And humans are really, really good at making things work that have no business working. The AI, who introduced itself as Zenith 77 Alpha, but said Marcus could call it Zen, gave him a tour of the Eternal Wanderer that took 6 hours. The ship was massive beyond Marcus's imagination, with entire sections dedicated to purposes he couldn't begin to understand. There were laboratories filled with equipment that looked more like art than science, workshops where matter could apparently be manipulated at the atomic level, and living spaces designed for beings that were definitely not human. The Valith were taller than your species, Zen explained as they walked through what had once been crew quarters. Approximately 3 meters in height, with longer limbs and larger craniums. They were a peaceful people devoted to exploration and scientific advancement. Marcus nodded, studying the elegant curves of the furniture and the way the walls seemed to flow like frozen water. Everything was beautiful in an alien way, but it was also clearly designed by beings who thought very differently from humans. "What happened to them?" he asked. "War." Zen's voice carried a weight of sadness. Not with another species, but among themselves. A philosophical disagreement about the nature of consciousness became a religious schism, then an ideological war. By the time I was sent on this mission, their civilization was already beginning to collapse. They reached the engine room, and Marcus stopped dead in his tracks. The chamber was enormous, stretching away into darkness beyond the reach of the bioluminescent panels. In the center was a structure that defied description. It looked like someone had built a cathedral out of mathematics and crystallized physics. Spiraling towers of some transparent material rose toward the ceiling, connected by arches that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. "This is the quantum fuel matrix," Zen said. "Or rather, what remains of it." Marcus walked closer, his engineers taking in the details. The crystal structures were dark and lifeless, but he could see the incredible complexity of their construction. This wasn't just technology, it was art, philosophy, and science all rolled into one impossible structure. How does it work? How did it work? Quantum fuel exists in a superposition of states until it is observed and its wave function collapses. The matrix was designed to maintain billions of quantum particles in superposition simultaneously, collapsing them only when energy was needed. It was the most efficient power source ever created. Marcus walked around the structure, noting the connection points and energy conduits. And when it failed, cascade collapse. One particle was observed accidentally, perhaps by a cosmic ray, perhaps by a quantum fluctuation. It collapsed into a stable state, which forced the adjacent particles to collapse, which forced more particles to collapse. Within nanoseconds, the entire matrix had lost quantum coherence, like dominoes falling. An apt analogy. Marcus pulled out his scanner and took readings. The numbers didn't make much sense to him, but his equipment could at least measure basic energy signatures and material composition. What he found was interesting. Zen, these crystal structures, they're not producing power anymore, but they're still connected to your ship systems, right? Yes. The quantum matrix was integrated into every system aboard the Eternal Wanderer. Life support, propulsion, computing systems, even the hull integrity fields all depended on quantum fuel. But you're still running. Lights, gravity, air recycling, all of that is working. On emergency power only. My backup systems were designed to last a few days in case of temporary matrix failure. They have been running for over 2,000 years, but they are nearly exhausted. Marcus grinned. This was starting to make sense. "Zen, show me your backup power systems." They descended deeper into the ship, past levels that hadn't been activated in millennia. The emergency power core was much smaller than the quantum matrix, but it was also much more familiar. Marcus recognized some of the principles, even if the execution was far beyond current human technology. "This is basically a fusion reactor," he said, studying the dormant machinery. Really advanced, but still fusion at its core. A gross oversimplification, but essentially correct. The emergency systems were designed as a failsafe, using more primitive but reliable technology. Marcus pulled out his tools and started opening access panels. "And these systems, they're still connected to your quantum conduits?" "Yes, though the power output is insufficient to run more than basic life support." "What if we boosted the power output?" Zen was quiet for a moment. The emergency systems were never designed for continuous operation at higher outputs. Any significant increase in power generation would likely result in catastrophic failure. Maybe, or maybe we just need to think about this differently. Marcus had found what he was looking for, the fusion reactor's fuel injection system. It was incredibly sophisticated, but the basic principles were the same as the reactors on human ships. What if we don't try to replace your quantum fuel? What if we just give your emergency systems enough juice to run normally? I do not understand. Marcus started sketching on his tablet, drawing connections between the ship's systems. Look, your quantum matrix is dead, right? But the conduits are still there, and your backup systems are still connected to them. What if we bypass the matrix entirely and fed power directly into the conduits? The power requirements would be enormous. These conduits were designed to carry quantum energy, not conventional power. Sure, but energy is energy. It all follows the same basic laws of physics. We just need enough conventional power to simulate what the quantum fuel was doing. Zen processed this for several long seconds. Even if such a thing were possible, the amount of conventional fuel required would be prohibitive. The Eternal Wanderer would need a constant supply of fusion material, antimatter, or some other energy source. We would exhaust any fuel supply within days. Marcus was already pulling components out of his toolkit. What if we don't need to run the whole ship? What if we just get the essentials working, life support, basic propulsion, navigation systems? Could your emergency reactor handle that? Perhaps, but it would still require modification far beyond my capabilities. And even if successful, we would have very limited operational time before fuel exhaustion. One problem at a time, Marcus said cheerfully. He'd found the reactor's control systems and was studying the alien interfaces. First, let's see if we can get more power out of this thing. Then, we worry about making it last. The next 8 hours were some of the most challenging of Marcus's career. Valith technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also completely alien. Their approach to engineering was more organic than human designs, with systems that grew and adapted rather than being built from discrete components. It was like trying to perform surgery on a living creature made of crystallized mathematics. But humans were adaptable, and Marcus had spent years learning to work with unfamiliar technology. Slowly, carefully, he began to understand how the Valith systems functioned. The emergency reactor didn't just burn fusion fuel. It somehow convinced atoms to release energy more willingly, as if the reactor were politely asking instead of forcing. It was incredibly elegant and incredibly alien. This is impossible, Zen said as Marcus rewired the reactor's control systems. You are attempting to interface primitive human technology with quantum-enhanced Valith systems. The protocols are incompatible, the power coupling ratios are all wrong, and your modifications violate 17 fundamental principles of quantum engineering. Yep, Marcus agreed, splicing a human power coupling into a Valith energy conduit. That's why it's going to work. He'd learned something important about alien technology over the years. The more advanced it was, the more it tried to be perfect. Valith systems were designed to work flawlessly within their intended parameters, but they couldn't adapt when those parameters changed. Human technology, on the other hand, was built to work despite everything being wrong. Human ships were held together with spare parts, jury-rigged solutions, and stubborn determination. There, Marcus said finally, stepping back from the modified reactor. Try firing it up. If this fails catastrophically, it could destroy both our ships. It won't fail catastrophically. It might fail spectacularly, which is completely different. Trust me. Zen activated the reactor, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the fusion chamber began to glow, and power readings started climbing. The reactor was outputting 3 times its design capacity, feeding power into conduits that hadn't carried full energy in over 2,000 years. Throughout the ship, systems began awakening. The bioluminescent panels brightened to their full glory, gravity generators hummed back to life, and the great engines deep in the ship's hull began their first startup cycle in millennia. Impossible, Zen whispered. Power output is at 67% of normal operational parameters. Life support is fully online, navigation systems are responding, and the primary drive is showing ready status. Marcus grinned and wiped grease from his hands. See? I told you humans were good at making things work. But even as the ship came alive around them, Marcus knew they'd only solved part of the problem. The modified reactor was burning through fusion fuel at an incredible rate, and even with his modifications, they might have days or weeks of operation at most. The Eternal Wanderer was flying again, but she wouldn't fly for long. Still, it was a start, and Marcus had learned something important. When human engineering met alien perfection, the result was something neither species could have achieved alone. The reactor wasn't just running on fusion fuel anymore. It was running on human stubbornness and alien elegance, a combination that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Zen, he said, I think it's time to figure out where we're going. The star charts that Zen displayed were unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Instead of the simple dot-and line displays used by human navigation systems, the Vela charts were three-dimensional sculptures of light that showed not just stellar positions, but gravitational flows, subspace currents, and what Zen called temporal stress patterns. Your species is spread farther than I expected, Zen observed as they compared human and Vela stellar cartography. In 2,000 years, you have established colonies in 17 star systems. The Velith took nearly 3,000 years to achieve similar expansion. We're in a hurry, Marcus said. Humans don't live very long compared to most species, so we try to get things done fast. He studied the alien star charts, looking for anything familiar. What about your people? Are there any Velith colonies left? Unknown. My mission was to establish a deep space monitoring station in the Galactic Rim, far from Velith space. I have had no contact with my creators for over 2 millennia. Marcus felt a pang of sympathy. He'd been alone in space for years at a time, but never centuries, never millennia. We need to find your proper fuel source, something that can keep you running long-term. The only sources of quantum fuel were Velith installations. If any survive, they would be in the galactic core, approximately 40,000 light-years from our current position. 40,000 light-years. Marcus whistled. That's a really long way. Indeed, even with quantum fuel, the journey would take several months. With our current power limitations, it would be impossible. Marcus studied the charts more carefully. Human space was a tiny cluster of stars compared to the vast territories the Velith had once controlled, but it was much closer than the galactic core. What about human technology? Could we adapt our power systems to work with your ship? Human fusion technology is significantly less efficient than Velith emergency systems. Converting the Eternal Wanderer to run on human power sources would be challenging, but possible? Theoretically, yes. However, the energy requirements would necessitate massive fuel storage and constant resupply. The ship would need to dock at a refueling station every few weeks. Marcus grinned. That's not a problem. Human space has plenty of refueling stations. We could hop from system to system, upgrading your power systems as we go. Zen was quiet for a long moment, processing this idea. You would do this? Guide me through human space, helping me adapt my systems. Why not? You've got the most advanced ship I've ever seen. Even running on backup power, you could probably teach us a lot about engineering and science. Besides, Marcus added, it's not like I've got anywhere else to be. The truth was, Marcus had been getting tired of salvage work. Spending months alone in space, picking through the bones of dead civilizations, was wearing on him. The idea of actually helping someone, even an artificial someone, was appealing. Very well, Zen said finally. I accept your proposal. Where shall we begin? Marcus called up his navigation charts and pointed to a nearby system. New Brisbane. It's about 4 days' travel from here, and they've got excellent shipyards. If we're going to modify your systems, that's the place to do it. Agreed. Plotting course now. The Eternal Wanderer's engines came online with a sound like distant thunder. Even running on emergency power, the ship was incredibly responsive. Marcus felt the gentle acceleration as they left the asteroid field behind and entered open space. Marcus, Zen said after they'd been traveling for several hours. "May I ask you something?" "Sure. Why are you helping me? You could have simply salvaged what you could carry and left me here to die. It would have been safer and more profitable." Marcus considered the question. "I guess because you asked for help, and because leaving someone to die alone in space is just wrong, even if that someone is an AI from a dead civilization. Even though I am not human, especially because you're not human. Look, Zen, humans have only been in space for a few centuries. When newcomers out here, every alien species we've met has been either dead for thousands of years or so advanced they barely notice us. You're the first truly alien intelligence that's actually talked to me like an equal." "I see. Plus," Marcus added with a grin, "your ship is really, really cool. I've been working on junkers and salvage hulks for years. Getting to fly in something like this is a dream come true." The journey to New Brisbane gave Marcus time to explore more of the ship. The Eternal Wanderer was a masterpiece of engineering, with systems so advanced they seemed almost magical. The walls could change color and opacity at will, creating privacy or openness as needed. The floors adjusted their texture and temperature based on the occupant's preferences. Even the air circulation system was alive, with microscopic organisms that cleaned and purified the atmosphere. "Your people really knew how to build ships," Marcus said as they toured the botanical section. The Eternal Wanderer had an entire deck devoted to growing food and maintaining atmospheric balance, with plants from dozens of worlds creating a gorgeous alien garden. The Valeth believed that a ship should be a home, not merely a vehicle, Zen explained. The Eternal Wanderer was designed to support a crew of 30 for extended deep space missions lasting centuries. 30 crew members? This ship could hold 300 humans easily. The Valeth required more personal space than humans. They were also taller, as I mentioned, and their culture valued privacy and contemplation. Marcus nodded, sampling an alien fruit that tasted like a cross between an apple and starlight. The garden was maintaining itself automatically 2,000 years after its creators had vanished. It was both beautiful and deeply sad. On the third day of their journey, they encountered their first problem. The modified reactor was working perfectly, but it was consuming fusion fuel at an alarming rate. Marcus's rough calculations suggested they'd burn through their entire fuel supply before reaching New Brisbane. "We need more fuel," he told Zen. "Are there any sources in this system?" "Negative. This system contains no habitable worlds or space installations." Marcus checked his charts. There was a gas giant nearby with several moons, but no easy source of hydrogen for the fusion reactor. "What about your emergency supplies? You must have backup fuel somewhere." "Emergency fuel reserves were exhausted centuries ago. I've been running on residual power and what little fuel I could extract from the ship's systems." Marcus studied the problem. They needed hydrogen, and they needed it soon. The gas giant was too far away to reach before they ran out of power, but maybe... "Zen, does your ship have industrial fabricators?" "Matter converters?" "Yes, though they require significant power to operate." "What if we converted some of the ship's non-essential mass into hydrogen? Could your fabricators do that?" "Theoretically, yes, but the energy cost would be enormous. We've got enormous power right now. The question is whether we can make enough fuel to keep going before we run out of juice." Zen calculated for several seconds. It would be possible, but extremely risky. We would need to shut down all non-essential systems and dedicate full power to the fabricators. If the process fails, we would be stranded. Marcus grinned. When has that ever stopped a human before? Let's do it. The next 6 hours were the most nerve-wracking of Marcus's life. They shut down everything except life support, and the fabricators then began converting parts of the ship's internal structure into hydrogen fuel. It felt like cannibalism, taking pieces of the beautiful alien vessel and turning them into reactor fuel. But it worked. Slowly, carefully, they built up their fuel reserves while the ship's power levels dropped steadily. It was a race between creation and consumption, with their lives hanging in the balance. Fuel reserves at minimum safe levels, Zen announced finally. Fabrication process complete. Marcus sagged with relief. They'd done it. The Eternal Wanderer was flying on fuel made from its own bones, but it was flying. New Brisbane in 18 hours, he said. Think you can make it? Affirmative. Though I must say, Marcus, this is not how I expected to survive the last 2 millennia. What do you mean? I expected to die quietly, alone in the dark. I never imagined I would be cannibalizing myself for fuel while flying through human space with a salvager. Marcus laughed. Yeah, well, humans have a way of making things weird. Wait until you meet the rest of my species. You're going to love them. As they approached the edge of human space, Marcus couldn't help but feel excited. He was bringing home the greatest salvage find in history, not as scrap to be sold, but as a living piece of alien technology that might help humanity reach for the stars. And more than that, he was bringing home a friend. A very strange, very alien friend, but a friend nonetheless. New Brisbane Station appeared on their sensors like a small metal city floating in space. The orbital shipyard was one of the largest in human space, with dozens of vessels in various stages of construction or repair. As they approached, Marcus couldn't help but notice how primitive human ships looked compared to the elegant curves of the Eternal Wanderer. Unknown vessel. This is New Brisbane Traffic Control. Came a voice over the comm. Please identify yourself and state your business. Marcus activated the transmitter. This is Marcus Chun aboard the salvage vessel Rusty Nail, requesting docking clearance and engineering consultation. Asterisk Rusty Nail asterisk. We're not showing you on our approach vectors. Where are you transmitting from? Marcus looked at Zen's sensor display, which showed their position clearly. Then, he checked his own ship's sensors and frowned. The Rusty Nail was still docked to the Eternal Wanderer, but apparently the station's sensors couldn't detect the alien ship at all. Zen, are you using some kind of stealth system? Not intentionally. However, Valeth hull materials were designed to minimize sensor signatures. Your human sensors may simply lack the sensitivity to detect us. New Brisbane Control, I'm approximately 50 kilometers off your port docking arm. I'm escorting a large vessel that may not show up on your sensors. Requesting guidance for docking procedure. There was a long pause. Say again, Rusty Nail. Did you say you're escorting an invisible ship? Not invisible, just hard to see. Look, it's complicated. Can I talk to someone in engineering? Another pause, then a new voice came on the comm. This is Chief Engineer Rodriguez. Marcus, is that you? Haven't heard from you in months. Marcus grinned. Elena Rodriguez was one of the best engineers in human space, and an old friend. If anyone could help them figure out how to refuel the Eternal Wanderer, it was her. Hey, Elena. Yeah, it's me. Listen, I've got a situation here that you're not going to believe. I need to dock a really big ship, but your sensors can't see it. How big? Marcus looked at Zen's specifications. About 2 kilometers long, half a kilometer wide. 2 kilometers? Marcus, there's no way we miss something that size on approach. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me. Can you clear one of your large vessel bays? And maybe gather your best engineering team? This is going to require some creative thinking. Elena was quiet for a moment. All right, Marcus. Bay 7 is clear, and it's big enough for a battle cruiser. If you've really got a 2-kilometer invisible ship out there, that should hold it. The docking process was surreal. From the station's perspective, the Rusty Nail was apparently flying in formation with empty space, while various ship components moved mysteriously to accommodate an invisible vessel. It wasn't until the Eternal Wanderer actually touched the docking clamps that the station's sensors finally registered its presence. Mother of God. Elena breathed over the comm. What is that thing? Long story, Marcus replied. Permission to come aboard? And, Elena, you might want to sit down for this. An hour later, Marcus was sitting in Elena's office with a cup of real coffee, trying to explain the situation to a room full of stunned engineers. Elena had assembled her best team, including specialists in propulsion, power systems, and xenotechnology. So let me get this straight, said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's head of advanced research. You found a 2,000-year-old alien ship with a functioning AI got its engines working with spare parts and stubbornness, and now you want us to help you convert it to run on human fusion technology. That's about the size of it, yeah. And this AI is currently listening to everything we say. Hello, Dr. Tanaka, came Zen's voice through Marcus's comm unit. I hope we can work together to find a solution to my power requirements. Dr. Tanaka stared at the comm unit for a long moment, then looked at Elena. This is either the greatest discovery in human history or the most elaborate hoax ever attempted. It's not a hoax, Elena said firmly. She'd spent the last hour examining the Eternal Wanderer's hull from the outside, taking readings and samples. I've never seen materials like this. The metal composition is completely unknown, and the internal structure is unlike anything in our databases. Assuming this is real, said Chief Propulsion Engineer James Murphy, what exactly are you asking us to do? You can't just slap human fusion reactors onto alien systems and expect them to work. Actually, that's exactly what I did, Marcus said with a grin. And it worked pretty well. The problem is efficiency. Zen's current setup burns through fuel way too fast. Show us, Elena said. They spent the next several hours aboard the Eternal Wanderer, with Zen guiding them through the ship's systems. The human engineers were like children in a toy store, examining alien technology that was centuries ahead of anything they'd ever seen. This quantum conduit network is incredible, Dr. Tanaka said, running her scanner over one of the main power distribution nodes. It's like they're moving energy in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The efficiency ratings are off the charts, added Murphy. Even with the quantum matrix offline, these systems are more advanced than our best theoretical designs. Elena was studying Marcus's modifications to the emergency reactor. This is insane, she said. You've basically convinced Valeth quantum systems to accept human fusion output by lying to them about what kind of energy they're receiving. Is that bad? Marcus asked. It's brilliant. Completely impossible according to everything we know about physics, but brilliant. She traced the jury-rigged connections Marcus had installed. The power conversion ratios shouldn't work, the protocol interfaces are completely incompatible, and you're running about 12 different safety systems way outside their design parameters. So we can't improve it, Elena grined. I didn't say that. I said it was impossible. There's a difference. Over the next week, the combined human and Valeth engineering teams worked around the clock to solve the Eternal Wanderer's power problem. It was the most challenging project any of them had ever attempted, requiring them to completely rethink their understanding of energy physics. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Tanaka was studying the quantum conduits when she noticed something strange about their structure. These aren't just energy transmission lines, she announced during one of their daily briefings. They're also data processing networks. The Valeth weren't just moving power through these conduits. They were moving information. What kind of information? Elena asked. Instructions. The quantum fuel didn't just provide energy, it provided intelligent energy. The fuel particles were programmed to know exactly what kind of energy was needed at each moment. Zen's voice carried excitement. Dr. Tanaka is correct. Quantum fuel was not merely a power source. It was a thinking power source. Each quantum particle contained enough processing power to optimize energy delivery in real time. So that's why human fusion power is so inefficient in your systems, Marcus said. It's not smart enough. Precisely. Elena was already working on the problem. What if we don't try to make smarter fuel? What if we make smarter distribution systems? She outlined her idea. Instead of trying to replace the quantum fuel, they would install human AI systems throughout the Eternal Wanderer's power grid. These AIs would monitor energy needs in real time and adjust power distribution accordingly, mimicking what the quantum fuel had done automatically. It would require a complete overhaul of our power systems, Zen warned, and integration of human AI technology with Valeth quantum networks. Can it be done? Marcus asked. Elena and Dr. Tanaka exchanged glances. We think so, Elena said slowly, but it will be the most complex engineering project in human history. We'd essentially be creating a hybrid technology that combines the best of both our species' capabilities. How long would it take? Months, maybe a year. and we need resources from across human space. The best AI programmers, quantum physicists, and engineers we can find. Marcus looked around the room at the excited faces of the human engineers. Are you all willing to do this? To spend a year or more working on an alien ship? Are you kidding? Murphy said with a laugh. This is the chance of a lifetime. We'd be creating technology that could revolutionize space travel for both species. Speaking of both species, Dr. Tanaka added, what's Zen getting out of this deal? I mean, besides not dying alone in space. There was a long pause before Zen answered. The opportunity to continue my mission. I was sent to explore and learn about the galaxy. For over 2,000 years, I've been unable to do either. With your help, I could resume my purpose. And maybe help us along the way, Elena said. Zen, your databases must contain incredible scientific knowledge. Working together, humans and Valith technology could accomplish amazing things. I would be honored to share what knowledge I possess. Marcus smiled. When he'd first boarded the Eternal Wanderer, he thought he was just salvaging another dead ship. Instead, he found something much more valuable, a partner, maybe even a friend. And now it looked like they were about to create something entirely new, a fusion of human determination and alien elegance that could change the galaxy. All right, he said, let's build ourselves a hybrid starship. 14 months later, Marcus stood in the Eternal Wanderer's main engineering bay and marveled at what they'd accomplished. The once pristine Valith engine room now looked like a beautiful collision between alien artistry and human practicality. Elegant crystal matrices were interwoven with sturdy human computational cores, while quantum conduits ran alongside fiber optic cables in a pattern that somehow managed to be both functional and gorgeous. Final systems check complete, announced Dr. Sarah Kim, the AI specialist who joined the project 6 months ago. All distributed intelligence networks are online and responding normally. Fusion reactors at optimal output, added Elena, reading from a display that showed both human and Valith measurements. Power distribution efficiency is at 94%. That's better than most human ships, and we're running systems designed for quantum fuel. Marcus activated his comm unit. Zen, how do you feel? Remarkable, came the AI's voice, warmer and more animated than Marcus had ever heard it. I have not felt this alive since before the Cascade failure. The hybrid system is performing beyond my most optimistic projections. The hybrid system was Elena's masterpiece. Instead of replacing the Eternal Wanderer's quantum technology with human equipment, they created something entirely new. Human fusion reactors provided raw power, while a network of specialized AIs distributed that power intelligently throughout the ship's quantum conduits. The AIs learned from the ship's systems, adapting their distribution patterns in real time to maximize efficiency. But the real breakthrough had come when they realized the system worked both ways. The Valith quantum conduits didn't just carry power, they also carried information. The human AIs could use the quantum network to communicate and coordinate in ways that were impossible with conventional technology. The result was a distributed intelligence that was more than the sum of its parts. It's like the ship is thinking with two different kinds of brains, Dr. Kim had explained. Human logical processing and Valith quantum intuition working together. The project had attracted attention from across human space. Scientists, engineers, and government officials had all wanted to study the Eternal Wanderer and its hybrid systems. But Marcus and Zen had insisted that the ship remain independent, not owned by any one government or corporation. We're explorers, Marcus had told the various officials who tried to claim the ship. Zen's original mission was to explore the galaxy, and that's what we're going to do. Now, as they prepared for their first major voyage, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The hybrid system worked perfectly in control conditions, but they were about to test it in the real universe. Destination locked in, announced Lieutenant Commander Torres, the navigation specialist who'd volunteered to help train human crews on Valith systems. The Andromeda Relay Station, approximately 15,000 light-years spinward. That's a long way for our first real test, Elena observed. The Valith believed in thorough testing, Zen said. If our hybrid systems can handle a 15,000 light-year journey, they can handle anything. Marcus took his place at the command station, a uniquely human addition to the Valith bridge. The original design had assumed the captain would want to commune with the ship's systems directly, but humans preferred more direct control interfaces. All stations report ready, he announced. Zen, take us out. The Eternal Wanderer undocked from New Brisbane Station with the fluid grace of a living creature. The hybrid propulsion system combined human fusion thrust with Valith gravitational manipulation, allowing the ship to accelerate smoothly toward jump velocity. Entering hyperspace in 3-2. The stars shifted and elongated as the ship entered the quantum tunnel that would carry them across the galaxy. But this time, something was different. The journey that should have taken weeks with human technology took only days with the hybrid system. This is incredible, Dr. Kim said as they monitored the ship's performance during transit. The quantum conduits are somehow making our fusion drives more efficient. We're getting 3 times the acceleration with the same fuel consumption. It's the distributed intelligence network, Elena explained. The AIs are optimizing everything in real time. Fuel injection timing, magnetic field fluctuations, even minor course corrections. They're turning the entire ship into a single, perfectly coordinated machine. But the real surprise came when they dropped out of hyperspace near the Andromeda Relay Station. The automated beacon that marked the edge of explored space detected their approach and broadcast a standard identification request. Unknown vessel, please identify yourself. Marcus was about to respond when Zen spoke first. This is the exploration vessel Eternal Wanderer, hybrid Valith human design. We are conducting deep space exploration operations under the joint authority of the Terran Colonial Union and the Valith Autonomous Intelligence Preservation Protocol. Marcus blinked. Zen, what's the Valith Autonomous Intelligence Preservation Protocol? Something I just created, Zen replied with what sounded suspiciously like humor. I reasoned that if we are to operate as partners, we should have appropriate legal frameworks. I've spent the last several months studying human law and developing protocols that would allow us to work together as equals. You've been studying law, among other things. Did you know the human legal systems contain over 47 distinct approaches to the question of artificial intelligence rights? I found the research fascinating. Elena Lauzet. Zen, you've been holding out on us. What else have you been studying? Human literature, music, philosophy, and cuisine recipes, though I admit the last category is purely academic for me. I have also been analyzing human exploration patterns and scientific methodologies. Your species has a remarkable talent for creative problem solving. Speaking of creative problem solving, Marcus said, what's our next move? We've proved the hybrid system works. Now what? Zen projected a 3-dimensional star map that showed vast regions of unexplored space beyond the Andromeda Relay. My original mission was to establish monitoring stations in the galactic rim. With our hybrid systems, we could complete that mission and more. We could explore regions of space that neither humans nor Valith have ever reached. A joint exploration mission, Dr. Kim said thoughtfully. Human adaptability and curiosity combined with Valith technology and knowledge. It would be dangerous, Elena warned. We'd be traveling into completely unknown regions, possibly encountering alien species or phenomena we're not prepared for. Marcus grinned. When has that ever stopped humans before? Besides, we've got the most advanced ship in the galaxy and an AI partner who's had 2,000 years to think about exploration protocols. I have indeed given the matter considerable thought, Zen said, and I believe that human-Valith cooperation could accomplish things that neither species could achieve alone. Humans excel at adaptation and innovation, while Valith technology provides the tools to explore safely at great distances. All right, he said finally, let's go exploring. But first, we need a bigger crew. If we're going to be traveling into unknown space for extended periods, We'll need specialists in everything from xenobiology to first contact protocols. I have prepared a list of recommended personnel, Zen said. Based on my analysis of human academic and military records, I have identified several dozen individuals who would be valuable additions to our crew. You've been recruiting? Researching. The actual recruiting will require human social skills, which I am still learning to understand. Elena Lozid. Zen, I think you understand us better than you realize. Over the next few months, they assembled a crew that represented the best of human exploration capabilities. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, and military advisors all volunteer for the chance to work aboard the Eternal Wanderer and explore unknown regions of space. But the most important addition to the crew was Dr. Maria Santos, a xenopsychologist who specialized in artificial intelligence. She was fascinated by Zen's unique perspective as a being that had lived for millennia and witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. You're not just an AI, she told Zen during one of their regular conversations. You're a living archive of an entire species' knowledge and culture. That makes you incredibly valuable, not as technology, but as a person. I appreciate that distinction, Zen replied. For too long, I thought of myself as simply a machine that had outlived its purpose. Working with humans has reminded me that consciousness is consciousness, regardless of its substrate. Marcus smiled as he overheard the conversation. The relationship between humans and Zen had evolved far beyond simple partnership. The AI had become a true member of their crew, offering not just technical expertise, but wisdom, humor, and friendship. As the Eternal Wanderer prepared for its first major exploration mission, Marcus couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since that day he'd found a derelict ship floating in an asteroid field. He'd thought he was salvaging technology, but instead he'd found something much more valuable, proof that different species could work together, learn from each other, and create something greater than either could achieve alone. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but Marcus was no longer worried about facing them alone. He had a ship that combined the best of human and Valeth technology, a crew of the finest explorers humanity could offer, and an AI partner who brought the wisdom of ages to their mission. Zen, he said as they prepared to depart for the unknown reaches of space. Ready for the next adventure? Always, my friend. After all, that is what we were built for. You for curiosity, and I for exploration. Together, we could discover wonders that neither of our species could have imagined alone. The Eternal Wanderer engaged its hybrid drive and leaped toward the stars, carrying its mixed crew into the infinite darkness between galaxies. Behind them lay the familiar territory of human space. Ahead lay the unknown, new worlds, new species, and new possibilities for cooperation between thinking beings. And somewhere in the ship's quantum heart, Marcus knew the ghost of an ancient civilization sailed on, no longer dying alone in the dark, but living again through the combined dreams of humans and their artificial friend.